Hello and welcome to an amazing podcast episode, which is going to be fantastic because we've just beaten Manchester United. We've done the double against them. We've got James, my cousin's in today. Mark is all the way in Australia in a different time zone. And we are going to get into it today, talk a little bit about sort of the run-in, the game yesterday, Villa preview as well, of course, and then we'll have a little bit of chat about the FA Cup as well. But without further ado, we'll just jump straight into the Forest all over the world section. Hit the music. So we've got Wayne, who said, nice way to start the day. Just welcome to NFFC FA Cup result. This was last Sunday. He also posted that he's out in Vietnam. So big shout out to Wayne Gallagher. We've got Steve, our new supporters club in Durham, NC. At the Federal continues to grow. Great turnout today, even pulling in new friends from Charlotte over 2 hours away. A great day, helped by the outdoor viewing area and 70 plus degree temperature. You Reds, that was posted in NFFC North America group. I asked him, of course, if I could reach it out, shout it out, and I did. Legend Steve. We've got Souls. He said, I'm a Forest fan who is traveling for the rest of the season and would love a shout out to help find other Forest fans in the places I'm going. So I'm going to DM him, find out where he's going. But big shout out to Souls. That's at Sully Hodge 7. If anyone wants to look him up on X and reach out. Then we've got Jan's son was at the Great Wall of China. Joshy Stabik, absolute legend. Picture of him with the jersey and then flashing over the Great Wall of China. So huge shout out to Joshy. We've got Jace Andrews. He was getting ready for the long slog yesterday up to the world famous from Cornwall. And I bet you it was worth it. I bet you the long trip back was well worth it after beating Man United. So big shout out to Jace Andrews. Nottingham Forest, San Francisco, I think it's SF Bay Area. Is that San Francisco? Well, the Bay Area, the SF Bay Area. Big shout out to them. They had a great turnout. And then Dave Sanders met the Spanish Reds at the NAV before the game yesterday. And they included Ben in it. Then they gave Ben his son Spanish Reds t-shirt. Massive shout out to him. That's the Forest all over the world section. Sorry if it was long. We'll start with Mark in Australia. How are you doing? How's the weather?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Great to be back on again. Very relaxed this season. I think watching the team, I feel more relaxed. I'm not as stressed. We are in autumn here, but the weather's going well, and yeah, the team are going better. So may it continue for the last 8 or so games.
Yeah, and obviously it's a different kind of stress, isn't it? Because we're winning now, and we're at the top end of the table, and we're trying to close in on a European spot. And we are closing in, and that brings a kind of a better stress in a way, a more exciting stress, not like the last 2 years. James, you're up in Dublin, my cousin. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on the show. Thanks for having me, first of all. Excited that we just beat United again, done the double over them, which feels really, really good. And we got some weather here, some good weather, about sunny for the first time in a long while, so it's good.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's sunny down here in West Cork. I'm down the opposite end of the spectrum from you. Thanks for joining, James. I know you sometimes listen to the podcast. I dragged James. He's my cousin. I dragged him up to be a Forest fan. There were other family connections as well, but I forced him into it. And James, I have to say, I felt so bad all these years until now, right? And now you get the sweet end of the bitter. So thanks for joining us. Little bit of a victory dance about Man United, Mark. How good does it feel to do the double on them this season for the first time since 1992?
Yeah, look, it felt fantastic. And I think coming into the game, there was a lot of talk that they were back in form and they were on a bit of an unbeaten run and they should be able to knock past Forest, and amazing result. Not surprising. I think in the past when the first time we beat them, I think it was last season, it was a bit of a surprise and it was obviously a huge result. This time, I think a lot of us would have gone in expecting to get something out of the game, and to win it like that without Hudson-Odoi, without Wood, and without conceding, such a good result, such a good feeling. I'm happy for Manchester United to stay down for as long as they can. They've had their time up the top. So, yeah, it was just incredible. And the goal, I messaged you once I saw the result, and it was shades of Brazilian Ronaldo, that the way Elanga broke free and seemed to have huge amounts of time. I watched the replay, and the defenders just stood off him. Once he got in the box, it just looked so simple, but the pace at which he broke was incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable. And because I know it was the middle of the night, I think, for you when the game was happening, like 3-4 in the morning or whatever. Completely different times. So you would have woke up and then you had to rewatch it, obviously. But the goal was just insane. And obviously the poetry is written in the stars, and the fact that it's sort of that revenge story of Elanga was sold to us for 15 million after all the wingers that Man United bought, and then he ends up scoring in the first 5 minutes. Just amazing. A little bit about the game, actually, before we jump into some bragging rights and stuff. James, you were watching the game and messaging me throughout in real time. I felt like Man United played all right. I felt like they played pretty well. I'm not saying we didn't get lucky or anything, but I felt like the first half particularly, they kind of put it up to us, didn't they?
Yeah, I think in the four, when we had the back four, I really think they, apart from the goal, that they had a lot of control of the ball. They were moving it well with the 1-2 with the passes. You could really see the style of play Amram was trying to force upon them. And it was honestly until the double substitution with Ola's injury and Danilo going off, it felt like they absolutely could have got back into the game. I think the five brought way more structure and it looked a lot better.
And speaking of which, that strategy Nuno has put in place literally on like the 39th minute. I know Aina went off at the same time, but I think he talked afterwards in a press conference about changing that strategy or changing things anyway, because he could see there was so much space and he could see that there was an overload and that Man United were kind of getting at us. Oh God, just like amazing. You know, you got to have Bottle as well to decide in the 39th minute. He could have waited till half time. There was another 5-6 minutes to go. Then there was another 6 minutes injury time in that first half. So Nuno continues to sort of like be the star of the show as well in terms of strategy, doesn't he, Mark?
Absolutely. He just goes from strength to strength, really. I thought I'd mention Yates as well. Looking back, the second time I watched the game this afternoon, there was a few times he got his foot to those last-ditch tackles to stop shots coming in. Going back to the goal, it was his header that set Elanga off. I think he played well. There's a couple of moments there, but you're not going to be 100% successful with everything you try. But thought Yates was really good. Thought Sells was really good. Man United did have a lot of chances, and I think their ability to put those chances away isn't too far off for them. But last night it wasn't on, and I like the fact that Elanga one chance within the first 5 or 6 minutes, and it's a goal. And I think that's one of the things that's made us so deadly this season is how easy or how quickly we can convert when those chances do come along.
Yeah, and like that was something that Amram said afterwards. He mentioned about, if Forest get a goal early, that's exactly the position we want them to be in, because then they have to come at us and then we break even more. And we're so good defensively that, it's just kind of, it's very difficult once we get ahead, is what I'm saying, to get back in the game. That Amram said that, and he was right. He had to then completely sort of change his strategy after Nuno changed his. James, I mean, little bit of a word about sort of like the defensive effort yesterday. Marcus just spoke about it there. Yates, I spoke to a friend of mine who was an ex-pro and he was a defender, and he said to me, like, that block on Garnacho's shot is hugely impressive because his weight had already been shifted to one side and he was done. If you look at the angle behind, then he stretches to get back and then it clips off him and Morato goes out for a corner. You play goalkeeper to a reasonably high level, right? You're not a professional, but you play to a reasonably high level. I mean, how important is Matt Sells as well? I know yesterday he didn't have a massive amount to do, but he just manages games so well, doesn't he?
Yeah, honestly, when the defense changed and we brought Alex Merino on, I actually thought he did really well for someone who hadn't played in ages. Comes on 5 minutes before halftime. I think the commentator said during halftime he was actually going through another warm-up to kind of get back up to speed with the regular players. Again, yeah, the 5 was massive difference. I think when Danny was on, he was coming in too much, and when you see Callum on that side, he usually goes out and tucks or pushes those players wide. The 5 was incredible. I think Morato fills in like really well. Nico can play both sides, even though he looked exhausted. It was incredible. Mats, even though he didn't have an awful lot to do yesterday, similar to the Brighton game, he is there in moments, like extra time when he made that save on the Carlos header, I think it was, for Brighton. it's so important just to be able to come up with those big moments. The Ryan Yates block on Garnacho, you're saying his weight's completely shifted, and to be able just to get a foot to that was like goal saving almost, similar with the Murillo block in the 97th minute. But like, it's so important, obviously, to have that defensive goalkeeper partnership. I think there was even that chance where Murillo let the ball go over his head and he was trying to get Mats to come out for it, but he didn't, and he had to kick it out. And even that little miscommunication, once that happened and they gave out to each other, they cleared everything up. I don't think there was another problem throughout the entire game. So defense and goalkeepers like goes hand in hand.
It does, especially with this team. Like back five, just the communication between all of them. They know what their job is. And even Sells just like ticking down the minutes, wasting a little bit of time in between goal kicks and stuff. That's another 30 seconds. It's a minute, and it all adds up throughout the rest of the game. Just stuff like that is just like he's on course now. That's another clean sheet. He could very well win the Golden Glove for the Premier League, which is insane to think about where we were last year, having, you know, a potential Golden Glove winner. I know, like, this isn't the Matt Shell show today because, you know, he didn't have much to do yesterday. It was all about the defending and the defensive effort, but still, like, just a word for him, his calm when he's in there. He gives his defenders a feeling of calm, and obviously they give it to him. So, yeah, amazing. That block, by the way, Murillo, absolute class at the end. Unbelievable. Mark, a word on some of the cameos. I think James has touched on it there. Moreno, Morato, even Sangari to a degree came on and he played a lovely ball for Williams, and we could have potentially gone 2-0 up as a result. Like, we're going to need them now. We're going to need these guys the back end of the season. Talk to me a little bit about how you thought they did yesterday, particularly Moreno, who we know we're going to need now because Aina will probably be out for a few weeks, I imagine. I don't know the extent of his injury, but I imagine he will.
Yeah, look, touching on that last comment as well, the Murillo, that last-ditch clearance, I thought was fantastic because he obviously went away international break and by all accounts didn't have a fantastic time. So, you know, mentally, I'm sure that was playing on his mind, and for him to come back, clean sheet, goal-saving clearance right at the death, fantastic for him. Yeah, look, I think going through the squad players and the bench players, where we are this year compared to previous years, is most of those players can come on and clearly play a role. Even the likes of Toffolo, I would back to come in if he had to. Domingo's being on the bench yesterday. Bolly as well. I think Bolly could come on and do a role. Morato looks amazing. He, you know, for him, I think he's certainly someone who could start in the future. The only thing stopping him is we've got probably, if not the best central pairing at the back at the moment. When he comes in, yeah, it's like a brick wall. And I'm thinking heading to Villa, that the three of those guys will have a big part to play, because just an incredible season in terms of defence for Forest. And I looked in the a few stats before coming on, and scored more goals than Villa and conceded less. So going in, it'd be huge if we could keep another clean sheet. And I think it would be, Sells would have some sort of record, wouldn't he? Would it be 14 clean sheets, I think, if he can do it, which would be huge. It
will be Matt, especially away at Villa, and we'll do a preview for Villa in a little bit. But yeah, no, you're right about Murillo as well. Just that point to take you up on it. You play your debut against Argentina a week ago today. You get hooked at halftime. The manager gets sacked the next day. It's been a disaster by all accounts. It's playing your rivals and losing to them, and potentially, you know, I think he was at fault for a couple of the goals, or partially at fault at least. How strong a mentality do you have to come back from that on the Saturday? Clean sheet against Brighton, 120 minutes, and then another clean sheet against Man United on the Tuesday when the rest of your team is really tired and the balls are coming at you, and you clear that ball off the line. James, like, as a goalkeeper, you make mistakes. You know, I remember when I was younger, I watched you. This is nothing to do with the podcast, but I watched you. You were being taught to kick the ball out, pass the ball out from the back. It was the first time they were introducing that. And you made a mistake. You cleared it to one of their forwards and he scored. About 5-10 minutes later, you made two unbelievable double saves and you kept your focus. And I think you ended up winning the game. So my point is, how amazing is that sort of mentality to come back from that kind of like that adversity last week for Murillo?
Yeah, it's just a testament to his character, to be honest. He's so young, 22 years old, to be able to do that on first time being called up. Well, he got called up before, but he didn't play. So on his debut, losing to Argentina, arguably making mistakes, to come back to Forest where he feels at home, where he's had the opportunity to play and show how good he is. He's rewarded us so much with, I don't know how many goal line clearances, how many blocks, how many defensive headers. It doesn't matter. He's what, 5'10", maybe even shorter than that. But yeah, it's to be able to bounce back from that, to be able to just forget about it, move on, come back to your club football, play again with Milenkovic. I think those two just like pair each other perfectly. He's so defensively sound, both of them together, even just the back four. To be able to do that is just, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And people were like, oh, his stock might have gone down. No, his stock has gone back up after that, because that shows the mindset of a winner when you take the disappointments and you come back from them. Just a word from our sponsors, some Manchester United fans who sponsor this podcast with tears. I'm gonna have to say it. James, you and I went to the Man United game last year that we won. The away game at Old Trafford, we won. Have I had enough of rubbing salt in the wound? The answer is absolutely not. Yesterday, all day long, I was getting messages from these guys telling me they were placing bets. It was like a gangster movie in the 90s, rolling dice. I couldn't believe it. They were literally going, I was thinking, are they confident? Are they making me feel crazy? Like, should I not be confident? This is the City ground. We should potentially win, if not get a draw from this game, even though we're tired. And they started to make me go crazy. So for the couple that were graceful today, you can switch off now. But for the one who wasn't very graceful, this is going to be a bumpy ride for you. You may as well keep listening. All right. You convinced me that Ten Hag, you made me think I was crazy and gaslit me thinking that I was crazy for thinking Ten Hag was a bad manager. And then he was the one that dropped Elanga, who sold you down the river yesterday, 5 minutes into the game. He bought half of Ajax. Now you're stuck doing nothing with these players and you have to hold that. So I am absolutely delighted that we've done the double. We've once, twice, 3 times the lady hit you now in the last 3 league games. I am chuffed to bits that we've done you. And you've been put to the Nottingham Sherwood Robin Hood sword. So hold it, deal with it, and manage it. Right, that's it. I'm just going to give that one out there. Sorry, folks. I have to do it, because if I don't, I've been sat on the sidelines for years. You know what I mean? And these guys were really trying. They were going at me yesterday. They were like trying to stoke the fire before the game had even begun. Quick one for you lads. You don't need to say anything or have a little rant or anything, but what I will say is, both of you have grown up in, James, you live in Ireland. So Liverpool and Man United fans sort of rule the roost in Ireland, and Celtic fans, obviously. Mark, you're in Australia, but you grew up you're probably similar age to me, 90s, Manchester United, fairy tale stuff. I mean, how important is it to have bragging rights over Man United fans, Mark, at this point in time? The double over Man United doesn't seem that important, but it is. It's massive for people like us, you know?
I take great pleasure out of the fact that throughout the 90s and early noughties, there were so many Man United shirts around. You know, everyone had their Man United shirt on. So rarely do I see them out these days. And it was a time in the 90s where they were the top of, you know, they were winning everything. And that did continue for a fair while after. They were still pretty consistent. So to have the tables turn, you know, I've been following Forest now since the early 90s. So it's been a long time coming, but absolutely love it. I've got a close friend who has supported United. He came over from Europe when we were in high school, and he supports United. And yeah, same thing today. A few cheeky messages there, and love it. Like, it's been so long coming that you gotta make the most of it now, and long may it continue, I say.
Yeah, and like, look, I think obviously this is born from being a Forest fan amongst a lot of United fans and having been in League One and the Championship and having awful playoff runs and things. But like, I think I'm an easy target when it comes to winding someone up. I'm very easy to wind up. So they'll take every opportunity to come at me. Like, one of the lads was like, oh yeah, you're going to lose today. There'll be more injuries. Like, they were really turning the knife before it even started. So I feel like I deserve to have that moment. James, last thing on the victory yesterday. I mean, is there anything this team can't do? 120 minutes, no Hudson-Odoi, no Wood, Aina injured, Gibbs-White and Anderson probably exhausted, Williams exhausted, the back line probably a little exhausted, and then obviously we're missing Wood and we have Taiwo fill in. Elanga has to fill in. We only found out about Hudson-Odoi just before. I mean, no one knew he wasn't going to be available. Obviously, they're saying it's something to do with maternity stuff and should be fine. I'll wish him all the best. He's not injured. But like, is there anything else we can't do? Have we risen to every test this season so far?
At this point, this team just doesn't surprise me anymore, which is an unusual thing to say with the past with Forest. To be able to come off, you said 120 minutes. I think with added time or injury time, it was 130, even penalties. United had all that rest. I don't even think they had as many players going international duty as us. To be able to come into a game like that, and it wasn't a pretty game, but we scored. We changed our setup. We had another chance to score, I think, with Morgan had that other chance if he maybe struck it earlier. But to be able to do that after the week we've had, especially winning on the weekend, we have Villa coming up. It's just incredible. Again, as you said, there was no Chris Wood, no Hudson-Odoi. Ola went off injured. Danny went off. Like, to be able to do that, it's a real testament to this team and what they've achieved this year.
Yeah, it's just massive. Villa, you mentioned there. Let's get on to the preview. We might as well talk a bit about the game that's coming up, because that's what this podcast essentially is, apart from taking bragging rights. Villa this weekend, Mark. Reservations, nervous. Will Forest once again, unsurprisingly, step up to the test?
Yeah, and as I think looking at past results and current form and so on, it only goes so far, but Villa have conceded 1 goal in their last 5 games across competitions. So that's across 3 different competitions. But one thing they're doing very well with a keeper like Martinez in goal is keeping those goals out. I think, the fact that looking at my notes now, Villa unbeaten in the last 14 Premier League home matches, and Villa haven't lost at home to Forest since 94. So there's a few bad omens there, but I would have said last season that would have sent shivers through me. But this season, as James said, nothing's going to surprise us. There's no reason that we can't go there, get the result, and march on into the next fixture.
Yeah, I mean, we've broken all those sort of records of beating teams we haven't beat this year as well, in terms of doing the double over Man United, beating them in Old Trafford, Spurs, Brentford, Everton, all those clubs that we said that we hadn't beaten since we've come up. Lots of things can appear to be a bad omen. I think the main thing for me is, it's interesting. You mentioned the stats about them. Did you say 1 goal they've only conceded in 5? Mark?
Yeah, I mean, across that, I think that includes Europe and FA Cup. I did watch their game. Yeah, I did watch their FA Cup game, and there's definitely they're an impressive side. It won't be an easy one, but there's no reason why we can't get that result. I've got the confidence, I think we all do this season, that Forest can go there and get something out of it.
For sure. I think the biggest thing for me is Villa have a bit of depth now. They signed a few players in January: Malin, Rashford on loan, Asensio, Garcia. They've signed a few players. They sold Duran, but they just bloated out their squad a little bit, which has really helped them, particularly in the European competition and the FA Cup. So they're now in 3 competitions. So it's funny because we kind of, just like Man United, we beat Man United. Now we have to turn our attention to wanting Man United to beat Man City and the other teams that they're playing in order to help us. It's going to be the same with Villa. They're kind of the kingmakers. They play a lot of teams in that sort of race for top 5. So we need to kind of get something from them this weekend for them to try and keep their form up after that. But the fact that they've bloated out that squad now a bit is gonna help them a lot. The only thing I will say is, you mentioned that the FA Cup game there, Mark. They play tonight, and then they play us Saturday, and then they play PSG midweek, which is their big game, because that could get them to the semi-final. Is that going to play a part at all, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's Brighton they're playing, so that won't be an easy match. And Emery's going to have to juggle things, so it'd be interesting to see what side comes out against Forest, because where they place the priority will be interesting to see. I think Brighton could get something out of the game tonight. For me, it'd be tomorrow morning. For you guys, possibly tonight. But I think Brighton they're a decent side. They could take something from Villa, and fatigue could play a part for sure in the Forest game.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. That Brighton game, that could drag them into a bit of a dogfight. It's not like they're playing, with all due respect, Leicester, Ipswich, or Southampton, or even the Wolves. They're going to be dragged into a bit of a dogfight with Brighton, who are also fighting. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Mark, that it's the priorities, isn't it? Where does their priorities lie? We're fatigued to hell. Obviously, we have a couple of injuries now as well. But James, your thoughts on Villa in general, and sort of, I don't know, I suppose that squad depth that they now have, so they can rotate and work things going forward.
Yeah, it's never going to be an easy fixture going to Villa Park. I mean, they're an incredible team. As you said, they sold Duran, brought in 3-4 players for the same price that they sold Duran for. So what they've done, it's a really smart piece of business, to be honest. Still being in the Europa competitions, still being the FA Cup. It's be interesting to see how we line up against them, because I was looking back at a couple of their lineups. They play similar to us, like a 4-2-3-1. And obviously, assuming Allah's out injured, do we go to the back five? Do we stick with the four? Because obviously we can't play Alex Marino against his parent club. It's going to be a tough one. If we can get anything, like a point even, will be massive to take from this weekend with the amount of injuries. But yeah, they'll be focusing on PSG, I believe.
What would you do if you're playing against them this weekend in terms of formation? And we may as well jump into it. Who would you start?
Because assuming Allah's out injured, and because we can't play Alex Marino, I think we'd have to play a 5. With obviously the 3 centre backs of Morato, Murillo, and Milenkovic. Nico on the right. I think he'd put Toff on the left. I don't think Eric's. I think he's too young to start. I think he's had enough experience. In the Prem. And I don't really see, like, I think Toff in a 4 is too dodgy. I think 5 just feels more resolute, and it feels like we can keep them out longer. Obviously, we focused on the season scoring first, and when we do score first, we won like 90% of our games. So trying to keep them out is going to be really tough. They probably have Rashford through the middle, Asensio in the 10. I mean, the amount of winger options they have is incredible with Bailey, Rodgers. Like, it's going to be really tough.
It's all about dragging them into a bit of a dogfight, though, isn't it? Like, if we can drag them into the back 60, 70 minutes of the game, they have rotational players come in, but then they have to start thinking about Tuesday, Wednesday. They're also distracted currently because they're thinking about Brighton tonight. And then they have 2 or 3 days to prepare for us, which isn't a lot of time. But yeah. That's interesting. You go for the back 5. Mark, would you probably do the same?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's where our strength will be with the injuries that we've got at the moment. I thought Taiwo did all right up front. Certainly bossed a couple of players out of the way, both in the United game and the FA Cup game. You could hear the crowd almost shocked at how strong he was at a couple of them. Back 5, and I think similar sort of feel to the game against United in terms of if we can get something early, then it will become a matter of can we hold on, and we've got the faith that we can with Murillo, Milenkovic. Toffolo will probably come in, as James said. Nico's playing very, very well. And Morato, I've got confidence that they could certainly keep them out. But with Rashford, the way that they're going, and just that, the sheer volume of players that they can choose from, it does scare me a little bit as to how we are going to get something out of it. But I'm pretty confident we can put in a performance, and if we can get a goal, we only need 1 or 2 chances, and if we can do that, and hopefully we've got Hudson-Odoi back, then we can, even a point, I'd be happy with a point, but if we could get a win, it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, and like you said there, it's that kind of thing. If we get that goal, can we hold on? Players like Morgan Rogers, I mean, the last game we played against Villa, we won late. He was brilliant in that game, I thought, against us. He just, every time he got the ball, he seemed dangerous. They have players like McGinn who have like big engines. And then, as we've already spoke about, they're rotating wingers and forwards all across the front 3 because they have the depth now. But I think we need to go to back 5 and just try and squeeze it out. And like, we're not aiming for a draw here or anything, but I think we need to just sort of back 5 it and then try and take them on the break kind of. And Yeah, I think just also be a little wary that like if it's not going our way, that's a kind of a negative way to look at it. But you know what I mean? If it's not going our way and we already have injuries and fatigue, we then have a week recovery for a big Everton home game. But they have PSG on the Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know which day it is. That's got to be playing on their mind, and we don't know what's going to happen with them tonight or tomorrow morning. In your case, Mark, we don't know what's going to happen with them. We don't know how many players are going to get dragged into the mire. They've just played an FA Cup game a day later than us as well. So it keeps getting pushed later for them as well in terms of recovery time. But yeah, score predictions, James, what do you reckon?
I would love a draw. I find it hard to think we're going to win with the injuries we have. I'm assuming Callum's going to be back. Oh, I think they're going to score for sure. I'd love a 2-2. I'll go 2-2. I'll stick 2-2.
Okay. The draw that you're very like your family member here. Me, yeah. I always predict draws. I predicted a draw against Man United, which I actually thought was a reasonable prediction considering the circumstances. But we took the win, and I'm delighted. Mark, score prediction for you?
Geez, I'm going to sound super boring here, but 0-0 draw, and the Cells and Martinez will put on a clinic in goalkeeping. That's my prediction.
Right. Okay. Well, my podcast predictor is something different to what I'm going to predict today, but for the laugh, I'm going to go for. Oh God, I'll just go for a draw as well. No. because that's what I believe. But like, I feel like one of us should go for a win, so I'm like feeling peer pressure to go for a win. I think we'll draw because I think that we'll still have confidence in the squad. Hopefully, those secondary players that can come in Sangare, Danilo, Jota Silva, Sosa, Moreno, Morato. Hopefully, they all play a part, and this gets their kind of confidence up. And hopefully, we can sort of like just keep Villa out and then try and nick a goal on the break or from a set piece or something. I think it's gonna be a real struggle with fatigue and stuff. But yeah, I predict. 1-1 draw is what I'll go for. 1-1 or 2-1. 1-1 draw. Anyway, no one really cares what my prediction is because I keep predicting draws. Right. FA Cup. We'll have a little chat about the FA Cup because we're in the semi-final for the first time in about 30 years. We made the semi-final of the League Cup a couple of years ago, but FA Cup arguably a little bit more prestigious depending on what way you look at it. I think it is. We're playing Man City. Aina's a bit injured now. Williams is suspended for that game. We could be without fullbacks that day. We're not going to do a Man City FA Cup semi-final preview now, but like just in general, like how excited are you for the FA Cup? I have these arguments with my friends all the time. I'm never really excited until we're kind of this far along. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't want to get injuries to the league, which I think is the priority. But how excited are you for the FA Cup, James?
Now very excited. I think, as you said earlier on in the competition, when you still had loads of games to go, at the start of the season, we didn't know how our team would perform throughout the entire season. Well, we didn't think we'd perform like this throughout the entire season. Being in it, having a chance to win it, I know we play City, which is probably the toughest game you can have out of the remaining teams. Yeah, very excited. It's going to be an incredible day. Hopefully, our experience at Wembley, we have Yates, who obviously will be missing it, but he'll be scarring to the rest of the players. I think you saw the excitement after we beat Brighton. Like it celebrated like we had won something. So I hope we can take that into the big day and get something out of it.
Yeah, I had an argument with a couple of my friends who are Man United fans who've won a lot of domestic trophies recently, but haven't done well in the league. So they're obviously biased. But they were saying, like, the cup, it's the magic of the cup, Chris. Why do you not want? And I obviously I'm caught up with it now since we were in the quarterfinal. And obviously I like the cup, but until that stage, you kind of like different eras as well. Mark, you and I grew up when the FA Cup was really special and was a really important thing. And then it kind of got watered down and saturated over the last 10 years with the likes of teams like Man City playing second teams and Arsenal and Liverpool doing that. Now I feel like it's kind of bubbled back up, and I feel like there's a bit more of a hoo-ha with the cup. It's gone back to its sort of all roots because people value it. You look at the parade with Newcastle and the League Cup there recently. It feels like it's kind of coming back to its old way. Some people will tell me, oh, it never went away. The FA Cup was always special. But there's definitely been a bit of a lull in a period of 10 or 15 years between sort of the 90s, 2000s, and then now where it's kind of finding its feet again, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Australia watching football. There wasn't too much on in terms of TV, but the FA Cup was the huge event every year. And that had the lead up with a preview show and the match. And I remember the the Forest versus Spurs FA Cup. And it was always the biggest event in terms of, in my mind, in English football. So I'm thrilled. I can't wait. I think the fact that it's at Wembley, it's against City. I did go to sleep, thinking the night before that I would take any opponent except City, but knowing that they are beatable this season, whether Haaland will be around at that point as well with his injury, I think we will go to Wembley. We will beat City within regulation time. No more penalties. We don't need those anymore. And I think it's just going to be a very special day for the club. And an FA Cup final is ours this season. That's what I believe.
I love that. And I think, I do think if we have our full squad, we can pull it off. And I do think if we're missing one or two players too, obviously there's just so many players now gone down for that. The Williams, Yates suspensions, the Aina injury, hopefully he's back. Wood, hopefully he's back. You can just hope. But this is why we were talking about the squad earlier. We do need them. We need these players now to step up. I thought Moreno had a really good game yesterday as well, by the way. I felt like Morata obviously had a really good game. And I did feel like Sangari did reasonably well. For someone coming on in completely cold, like that, even that just one ball he played just shows his quality in terms of his range of passing. So we're going to need them for this. It is a special day. Wembley is special. And I am getting that feeling again. And Matt, my co-host, is hammering it into me that the FA Cup is special and that I need to remember what it was like when you had those feelings in the spring, summertime, watching the FA Cup finals when the likes of Everton beat Man United, or there was a Man United Liverpool one years ago, or there was, Arsenal play Liverpool, and there was big ones, big FA Cup finals. And I saw something on TalkSport the other day. They were talking about Villa and Forest being in the FA Cup has brought back that sort of history of it, because if that was to be the final, it would be really special. I think it was Max Scott was doing something on TalkSport with Rory Jennings, but it just really, really is true. It is starting to bite me a little bit, and we don't need to ask the question, which would you prefer anymore, because Forest are doing brilliant on both fronts. So it's just amazing. James, I'm going to talk a bit about the run-in and the plus minus and stuff, and Mark will go into that a little bit as well, and then obviously we'll sort of try and wind down.
Chris, you mute yourself.
Thanks very much. There's a bit of a run-in thing I did yesterday. I thought I was muting someone else, but apologies. There's a bit of a run-in thing I did yesterday, and it was with Statsman Will. And we were talking about, I remember I was in Chicago around the midway point of the season, and I was chatting to a guy called Brian, and he said to me, it's more likely that we get better and do better the second half of the season than the first half of the season. And I said, okay, come on, man. And he was like, no. We just beaten Wolves that day, I think. He goes, it's more likely. You got to trust me. And so far, there's 8 games to go, and this is our plus minus on each game. So how many extra points we picked up or dropped from each game prior to the season. So Wolves, for example, we drew that game the first half of the season. We won it the second half. That's a +2. Liverpool was a -2 because we beat them the first half of the season, drew it. Southampton, no change. Bournemouth, we dropped -1. Brighton +2, Fulham and Newcastle, no change. Arsenal +1, City +3, Ipswich, no change. Manchester United, no change, which I think overall has us a +5 on the first half of the season, which was incredible. So we've actually raised our game, even though we had a couple of rocky road results against Bournemouth, Fulham and Newcastle. We've actually raised our game the second half of the season. Thoughts on the last 8 games now coming into it? Can we continue this full head of steam, or will we drop off a little bit, Mark?
I think the one thing that feels good is there are possible, with the points we've got ahead of Chelsea, we can afford to have a couple of bad games, but I think we'll be consistent enough to certainly, I still think, top 3. I even had my hopes up watching last night when with Arsenal and their result. Saka's back now, so he's going to have a big impact. But part of me was thinking, oh, can we chase down second? And I think we'll certainly hold on to third. Yeah, I think the way things have been going, barring, we certainly don't want any more injuries, but we can certainly continue and get that third spot. I'm very confident of that. Just hoping that we get a few players back, particularly Wood, because it'd be a shame for him not to see out the final part of the season because he's had such an incredible year in season so far.
Yeah, he deserves those 20 goals as well. I want him to get to the 20 Premier League mark. I think he's 18 now, Premier League
18,
goals.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I'd like to see him come back. James, that run in, it's there for us. Obviously, we're talking about third, fourth, fifth, but like, as Mark was saying, second, third, we should be looking at that because we have a bit of momentum now, don't we? We have that momentum and it's been carried in. Ryan Yates was talking about it in an interview with Martin O'Neill yesterday, how we have the momentum pushing us forward, even when we have other players step in to the likes of Marino and Aina's shoes and Taiwo and Wood's shoes, etc. There's a bit of a feeling of momentum. Do you think we can kick on at the back end and keep this level up?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, as you said, we're performing better net points to the first half of the season. As long as the injuries don't get worse, I don't see why we shouldn't be able to. We have that squad depth where I think, as you said, Sangare, Sosa, Jota, Danilo can all come and play a part. I think we have more home fixtures towards the back end of this season, so those will be crucial. I think the home fans last night were incredible. They've been incredible all season. It's not going to be easy, and I don't think I'm going to feel confident unlocking in any European spot until it's done, kind of like just with the past and how it's always been with Forest. But I don't see why we can't. As long as we can keep this form up, keep positive. As the players and Nuno's done all season, they only focus one game ahead. They're not thinking 3-4 games ahead. They're not thinking, are we going to win the FA Cup? They're not thinking, are we going to get Champions League? They're just looking at the next game. They're preparing for the next game. And that's what we can do.
Yeah, I think that's my anxiety that bled into you, by the way. That's my fault. I've done that for you for years and years and years. Me and James watched a Norwich game on Stephen's Day or Boxing Day years ago, 7 years ago maybe. And I was sat there and we were 3-0 up with 12 minutes to go and we drew 3-3. Everyone knows the game. And me and James we even said it 3-0 up. We said, we're not done yet. I was like, James, we're not done yet. I drilled it into his head. And of course, they scored 3 goals. Norwich nearly won it at the end. It was an absolute disaster under Karanka. But yeah, it's just funny because I've bled that into you. And now you're like, you're not locking anything in to the end. And neither am I. Like, I'm never going to say anything's ever done until it's done. So, yeah, you're right. It's the fatigue. Both of you, you're right on that. It's how many more injuries can we take? What's the fatigue level? And what does that take out of us? And how do we prepare otherwise? Nuno is the one I trust the most because he can find a strategy, it seems, for any situation. Last night was a big test. It was a big moment in the season. You have those big moments all across the season. Anfield away, even City Ground at home against Liverpool when we're facing them in like a title challengers thing. We came out and played well. City the other week, and then last night when we're fatigued and absolutely up against it. That's the test right there. And we passed flying colours. So I'm just absolutely like chuffed to bits. And I think the run in, I don't want to tempt fate, so I won't say anything. But I think we certainly proved ourselves to this point. Other than that, any final words, any plugs, anything you want to say, Mark? Thanks for joining us in Australia. You're an absolute legend.
Yeah. No problem at all. Thanks for having me on. The atmosphere, just watching the games and love that atmosphere. Got the TV turned up loud, trying to soak in as much as possible. I cannot wait to get back to the City Ground. I haven't been back since 2011, so it's been a while. So looking to get back. And the same year I was there, I ended up at a game at Wembley as well. So hopefully, you never know, get in the FA Cup final. Who knows? I'd love to think there's a chance I could possibly head over. But aside from that, I'm hoping Taiwo finds a bit of form. And he was so important to us in previous seasons. And I think people haven't lost faith in him, but there's a little less. People aren't backing him as much, and I think he's got a lot to give. And I think what he does is so important for the team, but he just needs a couple of goals, and I think he'll step back up to the level he was at previously. So let's go Taiwo. And similar to last season when I was trying to back Sangare through, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. I still think it's obviously a tough season for anyone to want to break through, but Sangare is certainly a player, and I think he's got a lot more to show as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we need to back them. And I think that they have shown flashes of brilliance. And I think Toyo specifically has saved us in the past massively. So yeah, we should back them. And by the way, if we make the FA Cup final, you got to call in sick, Mark. You got to wrap it up and get over. It's just like we'll put money in a kitty to fly you over, or whatever it may be. We'll find people to do it. If we make the FA Cup final, we got to get you over.
So want to go.
If we make the FA Cup final, we got to get you over. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
Do you want to give a shout out to the Australian supporters group there? You got a jersey on.
Yeah. So there's a few groups that I follow through social media and so on. And yeah, some of the merch that have been that's available. I've got stickers on my car, and as you can see, a really clever logo there that we've got for the supporters in Australia. So yeah, there's all over the country really. So east side and west, and a couple of times this season they've met up for games. I haven't been able to get to one. I'm currently about 5 hours away from Perth, which is capital city where we are. But there are people everywhere, and it's just fantastic. And it's been such a great season for people to meet up and enjoy, like we all are, enjoy some highlights, because we've been through so much in the past, 20 to 30 years. To think that now it's coming good, I think soak it up and enjoy it. We've already exceeded expectations, so anything else from here is a bonus, and hopefully European football next season.
And an FA Cup. An FA Cup final. An FA Cup win and a final that you'll get to come over to. James, any sort of final words from you before I do a wrap and give a couple more shout outs?
Yeah, just a shout out
to Matt. You're going to shout out to Matt, my co-host, who's not here?
Yeah, of course. We always miss Matt when he's not on. Absolute character. Obviously, met Matt several times. We were at the playoff final with him.
Don't give him too much credit. Yeah.
No, he'll need to hear it. He'll need to hear it. Shout out to you for having me on. Thank you. And shout out to you and obviously my father. You're the two reasons why I support Forest. I was brought up with that. You gave me the jersey when I was born. I wouldn't want to support any other club, to be honest, through all those horrible years. This is what makes the good ones good, when you get to experience stuff like this. So massive shout to that, and shameless plug for my YouTube, which is just my name. Any Forest match I go to, I'll try vlog it from the future. So I'm also going to the Women's Champions League final. I'll be vlogging that as well in May, so that'll be good.
Class. I'll drop the description or the link to your page in the description. You just do it for fun and stuff, and you were over at the Southampton game there in January, and that's cool. So yeah, and massive shout out to your dad, Satish, as well. So yeah, just want to give him a shout out because he was Forest fan, obviously, like myself. And when I was growing up, I was looking at him, and now you're kind of, well, I wouldn't say you're looking at me, but you know what I mean. It's cool. So what else? Oh yes. I'm going to give a shout out to Janet, Elliot's mum. I didn't do it at the beginning of the show. She was at the game yesterday. She's a good luck charm. I have several good luck charms in my arsenal. One of them is Savraj. The other is James, my cousin. The other is Matt, even though he's useless with everything else. He's actually, he's been to a plethora of games this season, and none of them have been a loss. So big shout out to Elliot's mum, who was at the game with him yesterday. Janet, an absolute legend. Elliot was on the show last week. Big shout out to Will, Statsman Will, who's in Orlando. We watched the game in Orlando, and he's having a great time there. And he said at the beginning of the game, put Yates on Bruno. If we do that, we'll win the game. And that's exactly what happened. So massive shout out to Will. And finally, my wife, who yesterday when she came down after all the hullabaloo, I said, do you realize what's happening? We've just done double over. Do you understand what's happened? And she goes, yeah, you beat a mid-table team. Who cares? I went, yeah, fair enough. She looked at the logic, she looked at the table, and she said that, and she's right. So, but to me, it's a big thing. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Follow us at NFFC all over on X, or at Forest all over on Instagram. Alternatively, go to forestallover.com. Matt will be back with me probably next week for an Everton preview. I'm going to the game. He might be going with me. And I forgot to say like and subscribe. If you got this far, do it. And if you've heard on the audio, go to the YouTube page and do it for me, because I forgot to tell everyone and it never works out. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, James, my cousin, my legend. Thank you, Mark, my Australian legend. And we'll see everyone soon, I'm sure. We beat Man United. Brilliant.